So most people who are millionaires or above didn't inherit it, they made it. So the question is, what are these characteristics? And I've said to people, it's like, look, you know what? The mindset that's currently running your money is the 6-year-old you. I want the adult you to be in charge. So let's talk about how to make that shift.
Hey there, welcome back to the Communicate and Connect podcast. This is episode 74, From Shame to Shared Values, Aligning Money Decisions in Military Marriages with Monica Kaufman. Monica, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm excited to have you here. Maybe you could, sorry to...
No, just thank you. I'm happy to be here. So yes.
Yeah, maybe you could share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Monica Kaufman. I've been in the financial industry for 20 years or so. Before that, I did research. I'm a proud mom of 2, one of whom is in the Army. And for me, what I've learned over the years is that money is just an extension. It's a tool in your hands. And so what goes on inside of you determines how you use the tool. And after all these years of working with people, I'm mostly interested in helping people out to learn the system so that they maximize their chances of achieving what they want to achieve. It's really just a question of understanding that the system is big and this has been going on for a very long time. And so there's no reason why people can't have it. They can't get their hands around it. I've seen regular people master it, and I've seen people choose not to, and there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, great. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast was because money is often a huge hot topic for couples. And I was just curious, why do you think money carries so much emotional weight for couples?
Because money really is the tool that you use to provide for yourself and for your family. And so how you use it based on how you've been trained to do so and how you see money in your life affects not just you, it affects the people around you and the people who matter the most. I really do believe that a large portion of how we approach money is imprinted on us by our families and by the people around our families and our culture when we're very young. So the messages we get by the age of 6 largely then show up in the way that we approach money. And then on top of that, we have a problem, and I've seen this in my own family, I've seen this all over the place. We don't teach the skills. And because we don't teach the skills, we don't teach a lot of it, and people come at it with fear. This has been going on for 4 or 5 generations, so it's nobody's fault. The question is, what do you do to become aware of that sort of imprinting, that mental archetype around money and success? What do you do? And then how do you shift to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, I love that you're mentioning that, thinking about almost like a generational pattern of handling money. And then that way could be very different than what your partner's way of handling money might be.
Right. And also, here's the thing, the generational patterns may have reflected truth back then and may have worked for the people who gave it to you. Like, there's no malice implied here. Yeah. Nobody's trying to hurt you. It's just that maybe it doesn't work for the person you are, your situation, and when you have to deal with different things. So it's a question of becoming aware and saying, how do I shift this pattern? Without anger, without rancor, how do I make it work so that myself and the people that matter the most to me are taken care of?
I like that. It's making me think about the idea of wealth. What wealth looked like 5 generations ago is very different than what wealth looks like today. And I'm also thinking about this concept of having like a wealth mindset. And I was curious, maybe you could talk a little bit about what even is a wealth mindset, and is that important for couples when they are thinking about money?
So the question is, how do you define it first? Have you ever heard of the book, The Millionaire Next Door?
No, I haven't, but I feel like I should read it.
Okay. It was based on academic research done back in the 90s. And they were looking at people who were financially successful, not counting their residence, their personal home. Okay. And what they found were certain patterns. These were people who weren't looking for approval, didn't buy clothing, items, house, car, any of that for approval. They weren't looking for affirmation. They didn't worship money. They didn't see money as power. What they did was they saw it as a tool. And so they were buying pickup trucks long before pickup trucks were $80,000. I can't believe they're this expensive. But they were taking a good car, taking care of it, and driving it forever. They weren't looking to project what people thought of as wealth and success. They didn't care. They were looking to build it, because one of the things you have to accept is that income is not the same thing as wealth. Income is where someone pays you. Wealth is something you own that pays you.
Oh, how
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to really start and define your terms. And what I would say is most people crave what I call financial freedom, which is whether they work or whether they don't, they can carry the load of what they need to take care of themselves and the people they love. And to get to that point, you have to build up enough wealth underneath you to be able to generate that income, whether you work or whether you don't. And then when you get to that point, you decide, hey, working is optional now. Every day is Saturday if I want to make it that way. But I can work if I want to. And it becomes a point of personal freedom. And just to step back, here's the thing. When I first started working on this program that I've been doing about 6 years ago, I sat down in front of a big, huge, monstrous whiteboard. And I was like, okay, where is this coming from? And for me, freedom means responsibility. I am responsible. I can choose how I respond. Okay. I don't have to do what I was programmed. I don't have to do what other people want me to do necessarily, or what I think I need to do to fit in. I get to choose my response. And when I do that, okay, I can choose what is right for me. That we were all created to be free or to be responsible to make those choices. And I think it flows. That's a spiritual belief on my part, but it flows into how you take care of your body, how you take care of your mind, well, your emotions and what you think. You're responsible for what you think. How do you take care of those relationships around you? And then the money is the last piece. But if you're not taking care of your body, you're not going to be free at some point when your body breaks down. You have to take care of your mind so you can be free. You have to take care of what you think.
Yeah.
And money is just one of those things. It's a personal self-ownership thing because, again, money is just a tool or a set of tools.
Yes. And I'm seeing how you're talking about it. It's the mindset that you approach money with, right? Like, I need to be responsible for each area of my life. How do I make sure that we're taking care of my family, but also me taking care of each area and having that flow?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about how this is so hard for couples to navigate. Like, some of it is tools, like concrete tools. Some of it is undoing maybe programming from your family that may not apply to you and your situation and what the two of you want as a couple in the family that you're creating, what your version of freedom might be.
And that's the whole problem. It requires communication. I'll never forget the first time, it was about 20 years ago. I sat down with a new client. The wife had brought me in and the husband was there. And they were so wildly divergent. Okay. They were literally on opposite ends of the spectrum on everything. And I sat down and I said, okay, we're going to talk about different things. We're going to do risk tolerance. How do you feel about risk? And risk is just really the chance that something could go wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything was just radically different between the two of them. And what I said to them was, that's okay. The question is, how do you talk to each other? How do you decide what you want? You got to decide what you want, and then you've got to come up with a plan that works for the two of you. And this was the first time they had ever had anybody sit down and talk to both of them at the same time.
Yeah, especially about money.
Yeah, about money, it was absolutely the first time.
Wow.
Absolutely. And there are times when people will say, you know what, the money is, I've earned it, this other person has it, we've never had our money commingled. There's all of that. You have to figure out where people are and then find a way to help them talk to each other.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about couples who are in couples counseling in our practice. And usually they're the couples who are struggling more with the communication piece. But I also think that it seems to be like what we know from research, it's money, sex, and kids, the hardest conversations to have. From your experience working with couples around money, what makes it hard for them to talk about money?
One, because there's a shame factor. Okay, do I know this? Do I understand what I'm dealing with? Do we have enough? All of that plays in. There's another thing of what do I know? What do I not know? There's a lot of bad information out there. But the other piece is, even if you wanted to find all the good information, that doesn't mean you're going to implement change. So there's a lot of steps into this that tie into the identity. I'm very clear on is that whatever happened in the past happened in the past. One, we can't change it. And two, I really do mean it when I say, according to the industry, 80% of the population really doesn't understand how the system works and how to navigate it. And this has been going on for 4 to 5 generations. So it's no one's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not your fault. What is in your hands is what we do today. Okay. How do I help you learn this today? And what I have found with people is that when people decide that they're going to do it, it gets done. And I'll never forget, many years ago, I got 2 referrals around the same time. One of them was a high-powered couple. Husband had been a doctor. They had children. He had had a stroke. The other one were 2 regular, normal people. One was a business person who had sold businesses when their daughter was born profoundly disabled with profound challenges. And she worked as a paralegal. And the 2 of them came in roughly at the same time. The high-powered couple had not taken hold of their money. And then even though he had had a tremendously high income when he got sick, if it wasn't for the disability insurance, they would have had a problem. The other couple made a decision at the beginning part of their marriage that the only debt they'd ever have would be the house. They lived in a very modest house and they lived off one salary and they invested the other. Any money that came in, inheritance, something happened, some money come in, not a lot. And when they retired involuntarily in their 50s, they had a lot of money that rolled over for management. A lot.
Yeah.
So it's not about education. It's about learning and processing and saying, okay, we're going to manage it. And by the way, when their daughter was born, they sat down, met with attorneys and said, okay, we need to take care of this. The special needs trust got set up. They bought life insurance, fully funded it. They assigned guardians. Okay. They did everything, got it organized, and they had it on their calendar to update and review annually. And then every 5 years, the estate documents were reviewed to make sure they were still valid and in place. Everything they needed to get done, they got done. Okay. Whatever it was, they faced it. So one of the things about the book, The Millionaire Next Door, is based on the research, they describe certain things. Well, and by the way, most people don't inherit money. Most inherited money does not last.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Right. So most people who are millionaires or above didn't inherit it, they made it. So the question is, what are these characteristics? These are people who start taking care of themselves. They take care of what they think about. They're involved in their communities, but they're not looking for flash. They don't need it. Like one of the quotes was something to the effect of, you can get involved in a lot of things in your community without spending real money. You can spend a lot of time with the people you like without spending real money. There was this one situation, this one young advisor that I mentored a few years ago. He was engaged and he sat me down and he said, Monica, what do I do about this? And I said, what do you do about what? And he told me that he and his fiance wanted to set themselves up so that they could buy a house. And I said, okay, so what's the problem? Because both were working. And he said, well, the problem is that we spend a lot of money. I said, where do you spend a lot of money? They said, well, when we're going out with our friends, but we still want to maintain our relationships with our friends. I said, okay, so you're going out to bars and restaurants. He said, yep. All right, tell me about your friends. Are they at the same stage of life? Are they doing the same things? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, so why don't you do this with them? Sit down with them and say, look, I really love you guys. We really love you guys. We want to stay with you, but we need to save money because we want to buy our first house. So what we need to do, and what I suggest we do, is that we meet at somebody's apartment or home every week. We trade off. I think that's 6 couples or 7 couples. Fine. Every 2 months you go out for dinner. But this way, when you meet at somebody's house, everybody brings something. And he wound up talking to his friends and discovered they had the same problem. They were trying to find a way to spend less. And so when they did that, they all went down that process. 12 months later, he bought his first house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And the big thing is, like, one of the things I say to people is you have to curate your environment. So a lot of people get a dopamine hit from buying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the things I'll say to people is, I'll go to the mall and walk, but I will go first thing in the morning when the stores aren't open.
Yeah. To prevent it from being like a coping skill or just a thing that feels really nice in the moment, but then is not helping you with your goals.
So you curate your environments. And one of the things that the Millionaire Next Door people found or the researchers found, is that to become successful, you have to curate your environment and choose to spend time with friends who reflect the same values as you. So if people are not willing to make a shift and say, okay, instead of going out for dinner every weekend, we'll make the shift so we spend less money. It turns out they wound up having more fun, spending less, achieving their goals, and they reinforce that they shared values.
Yes.
And that's what you're looking for. You've got to curate your environment. When you make a change, like alcoholics and addicts can't hang out with the same group of people unless they're changing too. It's the same thing here. I mean, with people who have addiction, that's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Okay, much bigger issue, but the same lesson holds. If you want to change the actions and the behaviors, you're going to have to be very specific with your environment and see how the systems inside of your environment move you towards either what you want or what you don't.
Yeah, I really liked that you were talking about values because I was thinking there's kind of actually a lot of skills and a lot of steps that are going through this process. Even in the example of the couple that you just mentioned, where they wanted to change the dynamic of the friend group so they could buy the house, because the couple first had to be brave to have difficult conversations around money. And then
Right.
they had to compromise and figure out what their values were to some sort of joint values together in their couple dynamic. And then they had to rock the boat a bit and be brave to do that with their friend group. And then thankfully, their friend group also had similar values.
And here's the thing, too. People who are financially successful, who hit that financial freedom point, learn to not be afraid to set up boundaries. Okay. These are my values. This is what I want. I may love you and care about you, but if I can't afford you because you're undermining my values and my ability to protect my family, that's a no-go. We're not going to cut you off. We're going to create some distance. We're going to create some space. It's hard to do the first few times. It still is hard for me to do on certain issues, but it's not optional. It's a required part of adulthood.
Yeah, the boundary setting. Yes.
Yep.
But I'm just thinking, like, for couples who are just even starting out, trying to get on the same page with money, how do you talk to them about starting to get aligned in their values and figuring that piece out of where they want to go?
Okay, so it's funny because I've had people say, well, you sit down with them and you help them figure out where they're going and where they're going. And the reality is people aren't interested in doing that, but there's a cheat.
Okay.
There's a cheat. A lot of times what you can do when you look at somebody's bank, there's usually a tab where you can flip a switch and see by category where the money is going. Unless they're pulling out cash, if they're using a debit card or they're using their credit cards, you can do it across all the accounts and see where the money is going. By category, then you can look at that and say, oh, wow, I'm spending 20% of our disposable income on restaurants. Okay, I have a Starbucks habit. I'm going to admit that. That's a problem. I waste money there, but I'm willing to give up going out to eat to maintain the ability to go in the middle of my workday and not look at a screen and just to take a break. You see the opportunities for saving. The second thing that I do after looking at that is what I will say to couples. And once they do that, they usually find, oh, there's opportunities we can give and take. We can give and take. The next thing that I say to people is look and track your spending. And instead of you doing it personally, let the system run. Put all the accounts and have that switch on and see what happens for about 2 months and see where you are. And when you look at that, I say, okay, one of the things you need to do to have a financial foundation, and I cover this in the course, is you need to do two things at once. You need to pay down debt and you need to build up an emergency fund. And an emergency fund needs to be more than what Dave Ramsey says. Dave Ramsey says a lot of good stuff, but this is one I fundamentally disagree with him on.
Yeah.
I also think it has to reflect a certain period of time where the two of you don't have income. What would happen if your income got turned off tomorrow? How would you pay your bills? And so that emergency fund exists to help do that. The next thing I say to them, when you look at this and you look at debt, whether it's credit cards, student loans, doesn't matter. Car loan, doesn't matter. List it. And I want you to list it by the amount owed, the interest rate, and the monthly payment. So when you look at your monthly income after a couple of months and you see what's disposable and you see what you can pull from and make changes on, you then have to decide how you're going to allocate it. And remember I said risk is the chance that something can go wrong?
Yeah.
That percentage, okay, for that interest rate is your risk rate. So what you want to do is you want to pay off the highest interest rate first, okay?
Yeah.
That's the fastest way to pay it down. And it's also the most responsible. This is where you're considered the most risky. So you want to pay that off first. The next thing that you have to do with all of this is you need to say, how do I want to live? What does this look like? What's the money going to be used to do beyond that? And it's a question of really just getting intentional and saying, I have this pile of dollars, where are they going?
Yeah.
One of the things I do with people is if you have debt, if you have loans, if you have a family member, the first thing that I want you to do in the military, it's not so much a problem for the person who's in the military, but for the spouse when they get a job, if their employer offers it, I want them to buy disability insurance. Group disability insurance is cheap. And what it does is it replaces, usually on an after tax basis, your income. Why do I want you to do that? Because what that's doing is that's replacing the income in the event you can't work through no fault of your own. And that means that if there's something that happens and we have a 70% chance of having something happen, the money thing isn't the first thing on your mind. It's not adding stress to the situation. And then it's really just a question of getting proactive about it.
So this is the type of stuff that you cover in your course?
Yeah. One of the things we do in the course, we start talking about the mindset. Okay. We start off with a sprint, which is free, 5 days, 5 minutes a day. If it's more than that and it doesn't fit into your life, you're not going to do the work. Okay. So,
Yeah, I like to hear that it's 5 minutes because that's me. If it's too much, it'll sit on the shelf.
right. And the reality is we're all like that. We're juggling too many marbles, and marbles are slippery. If I make this too big a marble or if I make this too slippery, you're going to drop it. So what I do with this is it's 5 minutes a day for 5 days. And after that, you'll see where the money archetype, where there are issues and why things are difficult for you. After that, we have a small workshop where we walk you through what the antidote is to it. And it's aspects of the millionaire next door archetype that we've seen. And then after that, the program works on the idea that we talk about changing the mindset and how to do that from a behavioral standpoint. We use Nate Zinser's method, and I've adapted it for money. But then after that, we're also talking about building up financial defenses. So I look at this as a journey. You're on a path from wherever you are to wherever you want to go. And what I want to do is I want to put up defenses, and those defenses are like resilience points so that if something happens, you either don't get knocked down by the wind that blows or the water that comes down, or you get back up really quickly so that you can keep going. You're not getting knocked off the path. You're not getting stuck in a mud pile on the path. You're moving forward. Those things are defenses. Another thing I talk about, and I mean this, having seen this, like it's funny, my son, when he got his commission, I posted a picture just of the rank insignia. And then all of a sudden I started getting weird friend requests from bizarre people claiming to be US military in all sorts of countries. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay. You're shaking your head. Yep.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about like same thing happens with all the ads, like you Google one thing and then that's the floodgates of everything finding you.
Right. So it's kind of funny. And I went to a seminar on identity theft, and the FBI representative talked about the fact that there are a lot of people who look and they're like, oh, if that's a single woman in her 50s, okay, she's an ideal target for us to take advantage of. I'm like, great. I looked at this and I thought, all right, you've got to maintain your identity and you've got to be very clear about that. And so what does that mean? That means antiviral software on your electronics, VPNs where you can on your electronics, good, clean hygiene with the electronics. Okay. Don't download files. Don't download trackers, all of that. But then also it's a question of having a password vault where you can keep track of your passwords and not storing them on the computer. All sorts of things that you can do to make sure that you protect that identity and you protect your money, but also your credit, your social security number, your security clearance, you. The money is there to serve you. You got to protect you. And then the other thing that I do is I will talk about you need to have letters of instruction. You need to have power of attorneys, medical and financial, because when something happens, you do not want your family member to step in and say, I had a situation where somebody was injured and I didn't have a power of attorney on them. And I was with them at the hospital. And thank God that person was awake. But if they hadn't have been awake, I couldn't have done anything for them.
Wow. So your program's pretty comprehensive, like the things that you do in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't use the system to protect yourself, while people are getting used to the change, while people are getting used to the ideas of what they need to do and understanding what risk is and understanding where the mindset that they were given through no fault of their own or through no fault of anybody else isn't working for them. And I've said to people, it's like, look, you know what? The mindset that's currently running your money is the 6-year-old you. I want the adult you to be in charge. So let's talk about how to make that shift. I said that to a woman a few weeks ago, and she just looked at me and said, how did you know that? I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, isn't that life in general? That's it right there. Yeah.
Right. And it's a challenge, but the program walks people down this path because I'm not going to ask you to make major changes with the cash and start paying down the debt and building up the emergency fund until you've got more support around you and until you're not going to get knocked down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you share a little bit about like how people could find you and how they could be part of this program?
Okay, so I will give you a link that they can do to start with the sprint to see if my approach makes sense. Because look, I'm happy to have anybody from the military and I will give you a code so that they get a significant discount.
We'll have that there in the show notes for anybody who's looking for that. Yeah.
Right. So I will have a link for that. And that's the gateway. You start with that. And then once you start with the sprint, if you think it's a good place to go, walk you through the workshop. And when you're done with the workshop, it's the course. There's 2 different courses. Each one has 4 or 5 modules. And the point is the modules are 4 weeks. And you're literally walking through process. But every day you get a small task. You get a 5-minute video, 5 days a week, and you get a small task. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'll say to couples is when you do this, what I want you to do is schedule a time once a week where you're going to sit down and I want you to habit stack it. I want you to do something fun. Then I want you to do this. And then I want you to do something fun. Okay. I want you to reward yourself for this. Why? Because I know it's hard. I want you to sit down and just review your progress. Where are you? The other thing that I will recommend people do if they can, I have dry erase boards that are calendars. And what I need to do again, because I need to restart it for myself, is you put up the days and you track so that you can see you did what you needed to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure that it's done and to help build the habit of making sure you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time. You know, the idea that you're going to get your habits down or changed in 28 days is nonsense. If you've been doing something all your life, 28 days, now you need to give yourself a little bit more grace and a heck of a lot more support.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to rely on motivation because motivation fails. Today is National Quitting Day. It's when everybody who said they were going to do their resolutions on average quits.
Yeah, because we're January 9th right now as we're recording this, right after the New Year's resolutions.
Right. And so I look at people, make a resolution, you're going to do this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we will include the links to all of that in our show notes for anyone who wants to do the sprint and then like go through your courses and work on this program. And I'm wondering if you have any last words of wisdom that you would want couples listening to this episode, what you'd want them to know.
Okay, I want them to know that A, it's not their fault that we live in a culture that does not send the right messages about what wealth is. We send the wrong messages. We value the trendsetter, we value the influencer, and we don't necessarily send the right values. That everybody here can do this. If you can make it through basic training and you can be a responsible member of the US military, you can manage this. You've managed things that are way harder, okay? So trust me on that. I know that this is difficult to have these conversations, but really when you take it away from the idea that this is a sign of grace or this is a sign of acceptance or status or power, no, it's just a stupid tool. It is a tool. I'm using a computer with a microphone with a camera. So are you. We've mastered tools. This is just a set of tools you can master.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really what I want people to understand. You can do this.
Yeah. Well, Monica, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've really appreciated this episode, and I'm hoping some people go through your program.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I wish you and everybody who watches this the very best. And thank you. I know that it's a sacrifice, but I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
While I am a therapist, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered therapy. It should also not be a replacement for therapy. So if you think you need a professional of any kind, you should definitely go find one. Until next time.